Ladies and gentlemen,
only the best internet radio station in the world.
ooh, yeah!
No, the universe.
The Coda iRadio Network.
Back by popular demand.
Woo!
Now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
I'm your DJ.
DJ Barbecue.
Has done over 400 events.
Ooh, yeah!
5, 4, 3,
2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands in the air.
Let's get ready to rumble! This is Uncut Live, and I'm DJ Barbecue. Powered by KBAC.Rocks. Rock radio the way rock radio should be. Midwest All Pro Wrestling. Go to MidwestAllProWrestling.com. Get tickets and feel the excitement. Jekyll and Hyde Barbecue. Our brothers from another mother. They make barbecue so good, they'll put a smile on your face. And Remedy Brewing Company. It's the remedy for what ails you. On today's show, I'm DJ Barbecue, and we have a great guest. He's an icon. He's a legend. He's a pro wrestling superstar. He's a big staple on the reason why professional wrestling is going strong today. He is OVW legend, a former WWE superstar, former Impact superstar. He is none other than Mr. Al Snow. And we want to give a huge shout out to our supporting friend, James P. Warholic, for helping set this up. Let's get with the show. Let's go. Thank you for calling in to the show here on the Kodai Radio Network. For some of the fans and viewers that probably don't know who you are, because there might be some of them, and hopefully there's not a lot of them, do you just want to tell them exactly who you are and what you've been up to?
My name is Al Snow. I'm a former WWE superstar. I've been in the wrestling business for 38 years now, and worked for every company, every name it, put a W in it. I've probably worked for them at some point in time, either as a wrestler, trainer, or producer.
Right on. One thing that really intrigues me that kind of happened in this last year, I think, my time schedule might be off, but it had to do with OVW in the school. And I remember always liking OVW as a kid, and it was kind of weird that, I eventually ended up meeting Mr. Eugene. And then I see that you were on a couple YouTubes announcing something to do with OVW. And I might be wrong, so please correct me, and feel free to do that. You guys are making that school kind of like more of a tech school kind of concept, to where kids can actually get like, a scholarship or something to go there, like it's a registered school.
Yes. What we've done is we're the first ever in the world, quite honestly, that we got accredited by the State Office of Proprietary Education. State Office of Proprietary Education oversees all of the trade schools, universities, all the secondary education after high school. And so we've actually gotten accreditation as a legitimate trade school for professional wrestling, sports entertainment, and broadcasting. The idea, the goal, is to not just instruct young men and women how to just perform in the ring, but to also teach them all aspects of professional wrestling, from backstage production, lighting, sound, camera operation, live event management, personal finance management, business finance management, social media management. We teach a history and etiquette course on professional wrestling. We teach a English course, how, you know, so they can use proper grammar and learn how to write their own press releases and etc. And we also teach sports and nutrition class, so that not only will they, at the end of the 2-year program, will they be a certified professional wrestler and broadcast, they will also be a certified personal trainer.
Awesome. Where did this all come up with? Did you have this idea like earlier in your career when you first started, or did this come up just recently after you started working with OVW?
I've always had the idea, always felt that professional wrestling training is not like going to your local martial arts academy or boxing or MMA. You're actually teaching these young men and women skills to pursue a vocation. And as such, you know, it should be treated much like going to a college or university. It should be treated like it's a gym. And I've always had that opinion, and I feel like part of what has led to the degradation of the wrestling business has been the proliferation of wrestling schools around the country, with no real standards of what's acceptable as far as, you know, trainers and their experience levels and their ability, where they've been, what they've done, what they've accomplished, to be able to communicate that to students. And then the students themselves have no real standards. Even in the States, they're governed by athletic commissions, wrestling and boxing commissions. Now, there's no standards as far as, not just from a aesthetic point of view, but also from an athletic point of view. There's no real standards, you know, and there's so many young men and women out there. I've went around tons of independent wrestling shows, and, you know, they treat this as if it's a joke. Like it's a hobby. It's just a weekend pastime, you know, that they pursue, and as a result, they're in no real physical condition to get in there and are improperly trained, or very, very little training, not a sufficient amount, and are put in there and, you know, are in the ring with another person, you know, are doing things that are not in physical condition or trained to do properly, and are risking injury to both themselves and the other person that could literally alter their lives, you know, or kill them.
Right.
And so I just found that it was insulting and absurd that my wife, who is a licensed masseuse, you know, she, or if you wanted to be in any state in the union, if you want to be a masseuse, you want to be a hairdresser, you want to be a barber, you want to be a mortician, for God's sakes.
Right.
You have to go to a state-accredited school.
Yep.
You have to be taught by a state-accredited teacher. You have to be taught a certain number of state-approved hours. And then you've got to, you know, have a certain amount of residency training, actual supervised experience. And then you take a test before you can ever be licensed as a professional masseuse, hairdresser, etc.
Right. Massage therapist,
in professional wrestling, all you got to do is just take a physical, pay the licensing fee, and you're a wrestler.
Yeah.
There's no standard. There's no bar. There's no bar set in regards to that. And I just found that it was insulting and absurd. And it took us a very long time to achieve it. It took over a year to achieve it, but we are the first ever accredited, state-accredited professional wrestling school.
I didn't even know that you didn't have to be licensed. I thought that's something that you had to do, because I know when I was helping Eugene do a show here in the city that I live in Vermillion, South Dakota, we had to have insurance on the venue that we were at, and so I had no idea. So that's really that's cool.
You have to have insurance as a promoter. Wrestlers themselves, you know, in some states, if they're not controlled by an athletic commission of any sort, they don't even have to have a license.
Oh, wow.
And then in the states that do, they just do a physical, do some blood work, and pay their fee, and then they're licensed.
Okay.
So that's, you know, there's no set standards anywhere.
Oh, wow.
to say that, a person needs to be trained by this type of trainer and for this length of time.
Now, if anyone wanted to go down there and get certified to be let's say, open up a school, can they go down to your school and actually pay whatever the bills are to be able to take the courses and be that, registered to actually go and open up a school if they wanted to? Is that an option?
But they can't open up a school. They can't open up a school because the requirements for opening up a school are a lot different than the requirements for being a professional wrestler.
Oh, okay.
The key to knowledge, okay, real knowledge, not what everybody thinks is knowledge, because we live in a day and age of information.
Yep.
And so everybody thinks that just because they have access to information, that now means they have knowledge. Nothing can be further from the truth.
Right.
You need to have a commensurate amount of experience to have a certain level of knowledge. And if you don't have that experience, there's no way that you can potentially or possibly properly teach someone the skills to be able to take advantage of any opportunities that might present themselves in professional wrestling if you've not had those experiences yourself.
Exactly.
Even if they didn't pan out for you.
Right.
At least you had the experience. Now you have an understanding of what works, why it works, and what doesn't, and why it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. A lot of people think just because they've either sat there and watched it, or maybe they've, been in the ring maybe once, or whatever, they think that they know it all because, we have the World Wide Web. I just had to ask that question because I didn't know if somebody was going to potentially just hear this and go, oh, well, I could go down there and do that and then do my own thing, I guess. You've recently, and I've been noticing that no, I'm not saying this, in disregard or anything, but you look a lot more healthier and a lot more built than you were when I seen you on TV as a young kid. What have you been doing with your weight regimen and health? Because you said that your wife was doing some of the stuff that she was doing with with health and stuff. What about the health and fitness that you can give some of the viewers that are kind of looking like with myself? I kind of get discouraged every once in a while. I go and lift. I had a back injury. Then I kind of get discouraged because it's it's just not working quick enough. Is there any kind of positive influence that you can give the viewers?
I would suggest two big things. One is, do compound or functional lifting. That's what changed for me, is that the biggest thing was that I started doing more compound movements and doing more functional movements. And that altered physically a lot of, because I hadn't really devoted a lot of time to properly or intensely exercising my lower body, and I pretty much do almost every day now, work my legs to some degree or another because they're the basis for everything else, and all of your development physically from head to toe. And they are really the key. Squats, deadlifts, kettlebell usage, things like that. I haven't bench pressed and laid on a bench and took a straight bar and done a bench press for probably, 8-10 years. I just stopped doing it because I did some investigation years ago and found, a website that had old-time strongmen from the late 1800s, early 1900s, and old-time wrestlers like George Hackenschmidt and Farmer Burns and guys like that, and they were just built incredibly and looked amazing. They didn't have, certainly didn't have steroids back then. They didn't even know what a calorie was, let alone carbs or protein, anything of that nature. So I thought, well, if they look that amazing, I'm going to start training like them. And that's all I did, was I literally started training like old-time wrestlers used to, old-time strongmen.
Right.
And then watched what I ate, and it started making a huge difference. And I still, to this day, that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where I remember watching, my son was at his grandpa's house, and it was my ex-father-in-law's, God rest his soul. We were watching it, and you guys, I think at this point you were working for TNA or Impact at the time. And I told my ex-father-in-law, I was like, man, is that Al Snow? And he looks and he goes, yeah, that's Al Snow. And I was like, wow, he looks great. He looks a lot better. Not to say that you were, I mean, you were better than what I looked at when I was, in school and health wise back then. But I just thought it was amazing, and I had to give you props for that because I think it just says how determined and how positive that you have been, just in the health industry and in professional wrestling. Now, with food, is there anything different? Because like with me, I always like grilling, or steaming, or smoking food. Now, I don't like the greasy stuff, and a lot of people that know me would kind of like, oh, really? Because you're kind of a really, big guy. Well, that grease stuff, like I always have to wash my hamburger meat after I cook it because of the grease, if I ground it up. What are some of the things that you recommend or what you have been doing for like eating wise that have changed?
Well, first, the one thing I did was I tried to watch my carb intake and all of that, but I just recently went to my business partners. He has a place called PFR, which is Performance, Fitness, and Rehabilitation, and they have a piece of equipment, and it's called they do an RMR test, which is a wrestling metabolic rate test. Okay. And they tell you what kind of a burner you are, whether you're a fat burner, carb burner, protein burner. And, you just sit and you breathe into a tube for about 20 minutes, and it gives you a resting metabolic rate. And then, like I said, determines just exactly what it is you burn for energy. And it turned out that I was a fat burner. So what I try to do each day is I have my little Fitness Pal app that I set here, and I record what I eat, and I have limits in regards to how many carbs, how much protein, and how much fat I can take in, and I always try to make sure that my fat intake is at that limit or less, so that I can hopefully try to lean out and lose some weight.
Right. Have you seen a difference between what it was when you first started pro wrestling with like food wise? Is it harder to kind of keep the calories away out of the food that you eat, just because of how much filler a lot of the businesses have put in? Like I noticed.
Oh yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot harder now than what it used to be. That's for sure.
We used to do a pasta meal.
Used to, it wasn't hard to keep calories away because I wasn't making enough money to eat. So,
oh yeah. Well, some of the stuff that you've noticed, like from when you started to now, what has changed with like the wrestling technique? I mean, you were trained a certain way, and I know like a lot of the kids that are out there and athletes are trained another way. In some cases, it depends on who their trainer is. But have you seen any difference?
Unfortunately, everybody's being trained the same way nowadays.
Okay.
Being taught that stupid 7-step formula, and they're, that everybody's adopted, and they're all taught the same way with that same formula, and then they're all taught to sell what they do, not who they are or why they do it, and that's what we've departed from. We've really gotten very far away from that, and as a result, it's not working. What drives an audience to want to watch anything really, and whether it be football, baseball, basketball, UFC, is not the what they do; it's the who they are,
right.
Why they do it. Conor McGregor and I forgot the boxer's name. With Floyd Mayweather, it wasn't the fight. It was who they were that was what sold that fight.
Right.
Their ability to talk and sell, and the why and the interest in seeing what would happen. That was all driven by who they were.
Right.
Not on what they were going to do.
Well, I mean, look at Tito Ortiz. He knew how to sell tickets when he was going against Alberto Del Rio in this last weekend. People had to complain about that.
That is performers, and it's a wrestler's job to sell tickets, to motivate people to leave their house.
Right.
And want to pay to see them. Otherwise, I don't care how physically good they are in the ring. If nobody shows up to watch them, it's wasted time and motion.
Right.
So, and wasted money. Everybody wants, promoters want a return on their investment because everything that's done with them is an investment of time and money, and they want that they want that money back. Plus, they want to be able to make money.
Right.
And if an audience doesn't show up in greater and greater numbers, then there's no point in continuing to push, promote, or try to capitalize on what the performers are doing.
Right. Say one of the other co-hosts, Dave Smith, wanted to ask, what do you think is the most overused move in wrestling right now?
Super kick.
The super kick?
And the false finish.
Yeah, I can see that. The one thing, and I want you to correct me on this, as somebody that watches it, and I've watched the independents. I'm a huge supporter of Eugene's Midwest All Pro Wrestling. They're actually a sponsor for the show here. It seems like everybody's doing the same matches anymore now. Am I wrong to think that?
They're all taught the same formula, and they're all taught the same formula. That 7-step formula. And the one biggest problem with that 7-step formula is that everybody does the exact same match. So now nobody stands out from anybody, because if you watch match one is the same as match 10.
Right.
There's no variety, there's no difference, there's no change from match to match, and the wrestlers are completely nondescript because they're not trying to convince you of who they are or why they're doing it.
Right.
They're trying to convince you of what they do.
Right.
And that will never happen. You'll never be able to convince an audience of what you do, because nobody has ever done it in the wrestling ring before. So they can't relate physically to what's happening. They can only relate to who that person is and why they do it.
Right. Cole, Candace's brother, wanted me to relay this to you. He just sent me this message. He goes, he wanted to tell you how much he loves your work. He's you're a tremendous performer in all assets of the business. Absolutely one of my favorite performers. I wanted to say that I have even more respect for him, having heard nothing but glowing reviews from his sister, and the experience.
Well, tell him that in 38 years, I can't count the number of people, both men and women, that have walked up to me and have said the following statement: "Oh, I'll do anything to be a professional wrestler, to be successful, to make it. I'll do anything." And I'll be like, all the time, I'll say, well, we'll see, because I judge people on what they do, not what they say.
Right.
Only one person in 38 years, when I gave them advice, actually went and did it. One person. One singular person in 38 years, and quite honestly, thousands of people that have told me, well, I'll do anything, just tell me what do I need to do.
Right.
To be a professional wrestler, to be a success. One person, and that was Candace Lorraine.
Wow. That's very cool.
She's the only one that's ever done what I told her to do.
I before I even knew Cole, I always told everybody else that Candace was underutilized in some areas, because I've watched her old matches in Independence, and I was just amazed. Like she can legitimately go. When she wrestled Shayna Baszler, who I'm friends with Shayna's dad, I think their match could be, just outstanding if they would given a chance to do a little bit more. But yeah, she's
doing a little bit more don't mean nothing.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Okay,
is that you and the wrestlers all have the same mindset. Well, they just need to be given a chance to do a little bit more.
Okay,
you're not listening. That's not what sells that match. What would sell that match is not what they do, because they can do a shit ton more. They can do a ton more if they want. They ain't going to get them over. They ain't going to make nobody buy a ticket.
Right.
They spend that time in that ring selling who they are and why they're out there trying to win.
Okay.
Now they're actually starting to tell a story.
Right. Okay.
Now they're actually invoking some kind of emotion. But you and everyone else today, you want them to do more physically, because that's what matters. That's what's important. The moves are what matter.
Yeah.
And they're not. They're the least important thing.
I see that. Yeah, I've been naive. I'll admit it. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. I need to start realizing that a little bit more, and that's the honest truth. Um, with other avenues in your life that you've been doing, collar and elbow came up, and I know that was really popular with us around here, in the Midwest. How did that all come about?
I was approached by my partner Rod Hicks. We got to talking, and we had discussed the fact that other sports, such as football has Under Armour, basketball has Nike,
right?
Baseball had they've got some kind of brand for their fans that represents really the essence of what the sport is. And unless you buy Pro Wrestling tees, or you went to a T-shirt from Pro Wrestling tees, which is great, or you buy a wrestling shirt from WWE, and they're all pretty much, the styles and the designs and everything pretty much scream, hey, I'm a pro wrestling fan. So you can, if you're wearing those shirts in a regular setting, you're inevitably going to get the conversation starter of, oh, you like wrestling? You know that's fake. And it's like, well, congratulations, Angela Lansbury. You've moved on from Murder, She Wrote to even more elaborate mysteries, and it took you a while to figure that one out, didn't it?
Right.
I got news for everybody out there. Everybody has known since the 20s that professional wrestling is fake, that it's predetermined. Okay?
Yeah.
And that just proves my point of trying to convince an audience of what you do. They're not buying a ticket to believe in what you do, because they've known that you're not trying to win when you're out there. They know it's not a competitive situation, but they want to be convinced that it's a competitive situation, that why you're doing it.
Right.
And they've, people have shown up by the thousands for decades, through the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. I mean, the wrestling business is well over 100 years old. So the incarnation that we have right now, and that's all directly because of the why. So with collar and elbow, we tried to come up with designs that have aspects of things that, if you're a wrestling fan, you can see the shirt and you're like, oh, I get it. I pick up on what that is. If you're not a wrestling fan, you just say, oh, it's a cool shirt.
Right.
You don't get it. You don't know, because you're not a wrestling fan. And we tried to get really high quality, the really soft, T-shirts that, like, when you'll dig through your drawer to find, because you want to wear that same shirt every day.
Yep.
So we try to use that kind of material, and then just try to come up with really nice designs that speak to the wrestling fans, and without screaming, "Hey, I'm a wrestling fan."
Yeah,
there's no diss on being a wrestling fan at all. But.
Right. No, I love the collar and elbow product. There is a really cool one that Midwest All Pro Wrestling has. It looks like kind of the old '80s G.I. Joe, and I absolutely loved it. My son has one. I don't know where he put it, but yeah, it's a really cool thing. What was your favorite place to wrestle at, like building wise, city?
It was fun in the ECW arena, the old Alhambra arena. The bingo hall was always fun, because the crowd tried to be more of the show than the show was.
Yeah.
Queens at the Elks Lodge was fun. Same environment, but WWE wise, like Milwaukee was always fantastic. Chicago was always awesome to go to. L.A. Surprisingly, L.A. and Anaheim, when we used to go out to Anaheim instead of to the Staples Center, Ford Staples Center. That was a blast. That was a great place to go. New Orleans, it's a lot of fun. A lot of the upstate New York towns were always, really fun to go to and be a part of in those areas. Midwest, like Detroit was always awesome because that's what, I got a big part of my start in Detroit at Cobo Hall, and, getting to go back to Detroit was always cool. And Cincinnati, because I'd gotten started in Cincinnati Gardens and all that. That was awesome. They always work there, that building. So
with you in Detroit, what was your first match in Detroit? You said that you got your start, and that's basically.
Well, I had my very first match was in Springfield, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
My second match was in Missouri out at the Chase, and Chase in St. Louis, and then I couldn't even tell you after that, but I would say then after that, the very first one that I had in Cobo Hall, I worked with Rick Bolton. I'm
just kind of curious about the gimmicks that you've done over the years. Is there any one that particularly stands out that you like the most, or the one that you didn't really want to do? But I mean, obviously you're going to do it, but is there your favorite to your least favorite one?
No, there's no real, least favorite one. The least favorite ones were the ones that didn't make me any money.
Right.
And those were probably the ones where I just didn't have a definable personality. Or it was a gimmick that wasn't really me, and as a result, it didn't really sell. It didn't communicate. So, and again, I didn't make any money.
Right.
Those were the ones that really sucked. Were the ones that I didn't make any money with.
Right.
But the thing is that I really didn't have a ton of different gimmicks over the years. I just went through a phase with WWE where they were trying to assign me a character and trying to find something that fits so that I could have a definable personality in the ring. Because what held me back for a lot of years was that lack of a definable personality. Being able to have the audience leave the building or finish watching the show and go, hey, there's this guy, Al Snow, and he's A, B, C, D, E, in a sentence or less. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter, how good you are in the ring. You're just not going to be marketable.
Right. Do you have a top 5 opponents that you've wrestled over the years that you've been in the ring?
I used to love to work with Bobo Brazil, and then I spent a lot of time both. I wrestled him several times, but also spent more time with him when he was our manager as the Fabulous Kangaroos, and that was Al Costello, because Al taught me a lot about hooking and how to be a catch wrestler, and which was awesome. And I loved to work with Chris Candido. He was just like, it was a night off every day. He just was so much fun and so easy. And Chris Benoit, really enjoyed wrestling him quite a bit. Could match. He was one of the few people that if I got really aggressive with, he'd stay and would just be able to work with. And that was cool. Bob Holly, of course, and there are a lot of different guys, all up and down from, Shane Douglas was awesome to work with. But it's a long list. I really don't like sometimes to, mention names, because then if I don't mention somebody, then I feel insulted. Like, well, what about me? But it's like, well, I just forgot. It's just like there's I don't want to sit here and for half an hour and go down the list of every guy that, you know, I ever worked with, like from 82 on.
Right. No, I get it. You know, I've had that issue before too when I'll do speeches or when I'm tagging somebody in there for like a barbecue vending event that I'm doing, and they, you know, they'll text me on the phone and be like, "Hey, well, you didn't mention me." I was like, "Well, dude, I didn't mean to. I try to get everybody in there."
Yeah.
So now I've noticed that OVW is starting to do shows on YouTube, or maybe they have been doing shows on YouTube, but I just recently noticed that they were trying to do, or they are doing shows on Tuesdays. And I've watched
We produce a live television show, and we've been producing the television show. I think we're on episode 1062 or something. Last October we did our 1000th consecutive episode of television, broadcast television. So I decided that because we put the show on YouTube. We've always put it up on YouTube, but I decided that we would go live both on broadcast TV and on YouTube at the same time. And we moved to Tuesday nights because historically, wrestling since the 1940s has always been on a Tuesday night here in Louisville, Kentucky.
right on.
And so I just thought that, you know, and that with the challenge of both NXT and AEW being live on Wednesday nights, which we had been for quite a few years on Wednesday night, I just thought, well, it was better that we just move ourselves to Tuesdays.
I absolutely love the program. I watched it with my son.
Thank you.
And this is the truth. I'm not buttering your biscuits or bread or anything like this, though the cliche saying is. But like, I honestly like sat my son down because I've always been intrigued about the OVW concept. But what I was saying is that there's the OVW is the top premier like training facility in my opinion, because of the talent pool consistently coming out of that. And when I watched that episode on that Tuesday, obviously nothing's changed with that talent pool, because that is an amazing talent pool that you have down there.
You know, rebuilt, and you know, OVW has had a lot of years where it just kind of, and but now we're back on track. You know, we're really working hard to improve the quality of the television show, and give a really, for people out there, like for you, and part of the other motivation for going live instead of doing the tape show is that for a wrestler to gain experience on live TV, knowing how to perform, knowing how to keep time, you know, knowing where the cameras are, how to things. There's no place to get thrown in the deep end with, say, WWE or AEW now. You know,
Right.
For a lot of these performers, the first time they've ever been on live TV is when they're out there on a national platform on live TV.
Right.
And, you know, that's the last place that you want to be learning. You know, you need a place like what I have here where you can come and you can perform. And then, you know, every single week I watch back all the matches taping. I watch them back on a Monday night and go over what everybody's done, you know, how they handle clothes, their body language, their positioning with the camera, you know, their in-ring performance. They communicate what they were supposed to. You know, you've sold the audience promos and your backstage vignettes, but then character, you just become another wrestler with a pair of trunks.
Right.
You know, so there are a lot of things that live television show that people don't realize if they never. this is one place that professional wrestlers can come and they can, experience and make mistakes without ending their careers, because it's not on a national, it's, and then that way they can hone their craft and polish themselves. And then that way, when they get an opportunity with WWE or AEW and they're thrown right out there on live TV, then it's not like it's a brand new experience. They know what's expected. They know what they need to do. They know how to do it, and they know how to capitalize on that opportunity because they've gone through all the experience here.
With your time on other like shows and stuff, have you adapted some of that, like from like Tough Enough and that stuff, or have you always had your your set goals in mind when you're training an athlete in OVW?
I always have trained the same way, which was the way that I was trained, and I feel that you don't just teach people what to do, you teach them, so that they have an understanding of what it is they're learning and why they're learning it, and is applicable as they go along. Like, it's teaching someone how to wrestle is no different than teaching people how to read.
Right.
The wrestling moves are nothing more than the alphabet, because in order for you to learn in the alphabet, the second thing is how to put those letters in the alphabet together, and then you put to make sentences, and then you put to make paragraphs, and then those paragraphs together to make a chapter, and then those chapters together to make and the same goes with professional wrestling. You're learning wrestling moves, but you're learning them. You're really learning are not just wrestling moves. You're learning how to utilize those and put them together to start making simple sentences. And then how to take those sentences, put them together, make longer sentences that communicate more of an idea and a character. And a reason behind it, and then ultimately being able to put those all together and continue to make more and more complicated, more elaborate, pictures telling greater stories, because you have an understanding of what it is you're doing and why you're doing it.
Right. No, that's exactly like how we would do with like coaching football. You have to show them the right way, the wrong way. You don't just, do it the backwards way, which what a lot of them do. My last thing is that do you have anything that you would want to say that's coming up for like OVW or any shows that you're going to? I do thank you for educating me on that, because, I was naive. I always thought that, wrestlers should do a little bit more on the show, but you've, opened my eyes, and I've always said you got to be a little more open-minded and, take criticism and stuff about, thinking a certain way, and you better yourself.
Well, yeah, I mean, all of us are always learning. I mean, even after, I've been in professional wrestling for 38 years, and, I'm still learning myself, and I learn every day. We're doing a big television event tonight, and and we're going to be learning, I'll be learning something more about professional wrestling, about promoting and producing live events, and the whole 9 yards, every time. So it's great part of it. I always think of professional wrestling, like peeling an onion. I mean, you're just layers and layers and layers, and you just keep learning and finding more things. All I can tell people is that, every Tuesday night, 8 o'clock, we have live television on WBNA Channel 21 here regionally in Louisville, Kentucky, but also on our YouTube channel. You can watch it. Understand we're, getting our feet wet, and we're learning the ropes, but also we're trying to work with some outdated equipment with updated technology, and some of it's not marrying together very well, so it's causing some challenges. But just bear with us because we're going to get through them.
Yeah.
And then, January 11th, tonight we've got the big Christmas Chaos show. January 11th, we're going to have our Nightmare Rumble, which is just like the Royal Rumble. It's always a lot of fun. February 21st and 22nd, we're going to be doing a co-promoted combined shows with Impact Wrestling, potentially in Lexington and then also in Louisville here at Davis Arena. And, and then we're just continuing to build the school. Open enrollment starting the winter quarter. So if anybody has any interest, they can go to aswa.live. And if they want more information on OVW, they can go to ovwrestling.com. If people want to follow me on social media, they can follow me at the Real Al Snow, both on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I've got the little blue check mark there now, but before I did, I had to always say it was the Real Al Snow because there were some fakes out there. And
Yeah.
when there'd be some fakes out there, imposters, I'd always message them and go, look, come on, really? I mean, if I'm going to fake being a celebrity, I'd set the bar higher. I mean,
Right.
for God's sakes.
They just had
But,
somebody with Shayna Baszler. She had to put a statement out. Somebody was messaging people, say that if you gave such and such, we'll send you this 8x10 picture or whatever, and it wasn't even her. So, yeah, it's I don't understand people, why they do that at all.
I don't either. But,
Yo.
And if they're interested, brand.com, they can use the code. They can take an additional 10% off of anything they find there. I think we're having a big sale. It's about 45% off. So if you add that 10% on there, then it's another, it's literally 55% off of anything you want to buy.
I will write that down when I post this in the description. I want to thank you very much for coming on. Like I said, it's been a pleasure and an honor. I know you're very busy. I understand that, and I just want to say thank you once again.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you giving me the time.
Yep. Thank you. Have a good one.
Have a nice day.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Imagine a world where boring DJs play the same 40 songs over and over.
Another deep cut by Aerosmith. Walk This Way on Boring 102.7.
Where radio stations play 16 minutes of commercials every hour.
This is Gary from Gary Chevrolet.
And I'm Carrie from Jerry Chevrolet.
Where the request line just rings and rings and rings and rings. That would suck. Radio doesn't have to suck. The only live local rock and roll radio show anywhere in the Sioux Empire. Actually playing music in the morning and the music you want to hear. Your requests at 605-215-5272. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Tune in at kbackradio.com, on Apple Music, or on your Alexa or Google Home enabled device. Also on the Live 365 and TuneIn mobile radio apps. kbackradio.com. This isn't some corporate VP of programming's rock. This is our rock.
What an interview. That was absolutely awesome. Thank you, Mr. Al Snow. Thank you very much. Thank you, OVW. Thank you, Collar and Elbow Brand. Thank you very much. James P. Warholic, Kodai Radio Network loves you, respects you. Thank you, brother. Much respect for help setting that up. You heard the man. Go to collarandelbowbrand.com. Save you some money. Put in SNOWMAN. I repeat, SNOWMAN is the code. Put it in, save you money, get a great gift for the holidays. OVW is just getting bigger and better like they always have. They always do. They got big things going next year with Impact Wrestling and some other events for themselves. Man, pro wrestling is just getting better and better. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Bear within us. Thank you once again. Everybody, peace. I'm out.